Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and it's time for another episode of LokeQuest, the series where I make HeroQuest quests from Loki Books of Battle Mats. Today we're going to flip to a random page in the Game Master's Book of Random Encounters by Jeff Ashworth. This has a lot to do with 5th edition tabletop role-playing games and not much to do with our dungeon crawler, but we are going to use the power of innovation and imagination to convert whatever we land on to a proper HeroQuest dungeon crawling quest. And it looks like we have landed on either the Column Cave or the Railroad Department. Excuse me, the Railroad Apartment. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of variation here. It's either going to be in a cave or in a cave. So let's go with the Railroad Apartment. It looks a little bit more interesting to me. An aptly named series of interconnected subterranean spaces, this trio of cave rooms is tough to navigate, making it a popular hideout for ne'er-do-wells and creatures who hate the sun but love the taste of human flesh. That's all I needed to know. We need to make sure we have 3 challenging rooms set in a subterranean, winding cave environment. You may think that this is going to be obvious, like I'm going to use the Castles, Crypts, and Caverns books, but it does turn out that the Dungeon Book of Battle Mats has suitable cave maps as well, so we'll just flip through and see what we like. I believe I have found map set number 1. Definitely number 2. Alright, it looks like we're going to be using pages 27 and 28 of the Dungeon Volume 1, and pages 35 and 36 of Castles, Crypts, and Caverns Volume 2. And I actually just changed my mind and I flipped the Castles, Crypts, and Caverns book around, so this is page 35 and this is page 36. For the Railroad Apartment, they seem to want a trio of cave rooms, and I feel like this is going to represent what I want to go for a little bit better here. Our heroes are going to start right here at the cavern entrance. There's a little bit of man-made structure, dwarf-made, elf-made, goblin made? No, the handiwork is too fine. They're going to enter in through here, and there may be some goblin guards set up around this area, or some other really small enemy, somebody who doesn't want to venture too much into the cave, because even though they have staked this as their territory, they are of course too cowardly to go into the depths and meet the true masters of the cave. So the heroes can definitely intervene, they can definitely intrude to research it and run into enemies here, or Zargon, you can make this the safe room. If it's one thing I've learned doing these Loki map quests, it's that it feels simultaneously correct and also wrong to have all of these wide open spaces. All of the monsters fit, obviously. There's no crowding, the heroes have clear line of sight, the skirmish can take place unadulterated, with few obstacles. But also, that doesn't feel exactly like HeroQuest. HeroQuest is a game of very narrow corridors, of tight rooms, of danger lurking around every square inch. It's not really about freedom. The other thing is, with all of this line of sight, what constitutes a room? The concept of the room is important in HeroQuest because that's where you can search for treasure. You can also do trap searches across an entire room or across an entire corridor up to your line of sight. So what happens when you have such huge rooms? Well, that's going to have to be Zargon's call, but some of the suggestions that I can make are we can adapt the Dragon Strike style of searching. If we are searching for traps in Dragon Strike, it's every square that the hero can see up to 3 spaces away. So this actually makes the heroes slow down and crawl through the dungeon, making it feel a little bit more like a HeroQuest flavored experience. You may put traps out kind of like Minesweeper style, and if the heroes can't see them because they're only just 4 tiles away, then they'll be forced to search again if there are no monsters in their line of sight as they continue to creep along the dungeon corridors. That might sound monotonous, but there are actually players at my table who find this sort of gameplay fun. They get tense, they get a bit giggly when there's been 2 or 3 turns and they haven't found a trap. Alright, so for the purpose of being able to attack and not this here, this stairway down, right up until the bottom step, you are not allowed to attack monsters off the edge because they are too far down, you are too high up. You can of course use ranged weapons, and you can flub this if you're Zargon. This is just what I would do. A bit of a fun moment here. You could just have your heroes kind of defend the 1 corridor wide stairwell as the monsters try to get to the end of it to run up the stairs, and that's pretty much the only instance of corridor or doorway combat you're going to have in this experience. The wandering monster in this quest I'm just going to have be a single orc. I'm also going to say use as many orcs and goblins as you have. I think if you have the Keller's Keep expansion, that will afford you with the appropriate amount of orcs and goblins to use in this cave system. Zargon, I would draw invisible lines that sort of act like doors, and when the heroes step over these invisible lines, a new portion of the cave system is revealed to them, and you can begin rendering the room by placing the monsters and any visible objects around. One of the cons of using Loki maps is that for dungeons like these, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity to place our lovely HeroQuest furniture like bookcases and so on, but we do have some options. Zargon, the first perimeter, the first border that I would lay down is exactly right here, and once the hero crosses over this, the next room's contents are revealed. If you want to incorporate a torch mechanic such that a leading hero is carrying a torch that lights up the rooms to give this a little bit more context, I think that would work beautifully. You can say that the darkness is here, and the hero, only the hero with the torch, once they have crossed that line, that border, all of the darkness will now light up. It's not exactly realistic, it's more just game mechanic. Now everything here is revealed. Now this is how I would reveal the contents of these rooms right here, and I've decided to put a chest in this corner of the room as well. You don't have to reveal this until your hero is in its line of sight, or until your hero has passed over these implied inclines. There are little cliff walls, little human-sized cliff walls around these caves, and your hero can scramble up on top of them to see what lies above. Until they get up there, they don't have to see what's up there, and their roll to climb could be for nothing. What's a roll to climb? You get to decide that. But first, reading a little bit more on this railroad apartment. The railroad apartment can be accessed through a single subterranean tunnel or through a cave entrance at the GM discretion. Here we go. The first room is relatively open with a high ceiling, and most would be forgiven for assuming it's also a dead end. That works out well. Perception check reveals a small seam in the opposite cavern wall, a seam that leads to a second, larger open space. That is, if you can fit. We're going to change that up a bit and just have this be the second open space. A similar opening can be spotted in the secondary chamber and is equally difficult to navigate. The third chamber is larger than the other two, but feels more crowded as its ceiling is only 5 feet off the ground. This is an important point and something to talk about once we get to that far in the quest. The rest of this I don't care about, except for the variant encounters. There's a variant encounter table on every single one of these random encounter dungeons or scenarios, where you can roll a d6 and the result will give you a random encounter. So for example, roll 1d6 to determine what dangers and treasures may await the party within the railroad apartment. So roll a 4, an angry ogre stomping about in a room. 2 is enough to shake the cave walls in rooms 1 and 3. We are doing this a little bit differently for our HeroQuest adventure. We have our wandering monster, which is the orc, but we also have a story element, so as the heroes progress through the cave system, they will begin to learn more about what really lurks within the depths of this cavern. Now when your heroes climb or clamber up to the top of this ledge, that's when the contents of the third room are revealed. I guess I should say second room, because what's really happening in my mind here is that this is the general area that's accessible no matter what, and then this is like the first room of the cave system that is unexplored, is really dangerous. The second room would be here, and then the third room is here, but it does go on to a boss fight, which your players don't need to know about just yet. In fact, you can take this section of this book and fold it underneath this section, and only unfold it once your players reach this area and have searched it and have found the exits leading out. So here are the contents of the second room that I'm laying out, and you can tell the heroes that although the ceiling was high in the first room, it remains at the exact same level in the second, but the heroes are beginning to climb upwards, so now the ceiling is much lower. That could give a feeling of some tension, of some dread. It doesn't necessarily have to have any mechanical implications. And the contents of room 3 and room 4. So once again, just to line myself out, we have the entrance, room 1, room 2, room 3, and room 4. I would say room 4 is entirely optional, so this is how I want this to play out. Our heroes are going to come inside, and these are the positions that our enemies will be in. Once the heroes cross this threshold, they'll be able to see these enemies. Once they cross this threshold, they'll be able to see these enemies. So here's the complete dungeon with all of the contents laid out, as if the heroes could see every single spot on the board. Obviously, it won't be laid out this way when you begin your adventure. This is the room that will be visible to the heroes when the adventure starts, and once they have crossed this threshold with the torch, the contents of this room will be laid out. As Zargon, you can choose to have the chest and the goblins hidden from view until the heroes are within an acceptable range of line of sight. The goblins, after all, are pretty tucked away, hiding, and the chest may contain great treasures. Next, once the heroes have clambered up these short cliffs, right about here, the line of sight will open up all of this room's contents, and the darkness will now be here. Once the heroes have made it to this point and have crossed this threshold, all of this can be revealed, and you can choose to put the rest of stuff on the board because the monsters will undoubtedly be aware of the hero's presence and it is considered all one room. Or you could choose to reveal them when the hero comes into their line of sight. I think it would be best to put all of the monsters out to begin with because these monsters can hear the battling and roar and wah going on, and of course they're going to come to the aid of their fellow monsters. Now in this chest is the object for which you are questing. It is a special item a broker sent you to retrieve, and if you take that item and you leave the dungeon, you will be not awarded anything because it is actually a fake. The real Stone of Mundi is beyond these doors, and they are only accessible if you have the appropriate strength and can attack them and destroy them, or if you find a key. Where exactly this key should be hidden is up to Zargon. It can be on the body of any of the monsters, but it's very likely that your skirmishes here are going to lead the heroes to combat and murder every single monster on the board. So you could put it in this treasure chest. You could decide to put it in the weapons rack or under the table. Wherever the heroes are searching for treasure, you could reveal this key. Once the doors have been opened, you are led to the true horror of this cave. So at this point, to truly surprise your heroes, if you haven't done so already, you can unflip the page out from the bottom of the book if you did tuck it in earlier, and reveal that there is a bloodthirsty, flesh-eating ogre just on the other side of the doors. This ogre is flanked by 3 abomination bodyguards who will not act on his turn just yet. You've surprised all of them. So the heroes get to finish their movement, and on the next turn, the ogre will act. Now this ogre should have, in my opinion, 10 BP. As Zargon, that's up to you. But it is noted that this ogre is feared by all of the denizens in the cave system. He eats entire goblins, halflings, and dwarves. Whole. Picks the bones clean. Nobody dares venture into his lair unless commanded to do so or unless they are delivering dinner. After the heroes have engaged the ogre in battle for the first turn, on the second Zargon turn, the abominations can begin their movement. Therefore, it is of vital importance that the heroes take out the ogre as fast as possible, and they are incentivized by doing so, because if they can, then the resulting abomination horde that comes up is going to be a lot less challenging. Now, if you don't think that this fight is particularly balanced, you can actually have your abominations just run out of the room or jump into the pit or something like that. Just escape or die. I'd like to think that this particular idea is a little bit nefarious. If your heroes search the room, they will get to draw treasure cards. However, once they come into line of sight, if they do, of this treasure chest behind this wall, reveal the treasure chest, and then the first hero who searches it will find the real Stone of Mundi. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this Loki quest. Please let me know if you'd like to see more and what you thought of this, or comment anything you'd like down below. I really appreciate and love all of the support, and I will see you in the next adventure. So until then, brave heroes, onward.